You're listening to the Team Check-In, powered by Teamflect.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Team Check-In. I'm your host Emre, and with me today, an expert on everything travel, I guess, Chris March.
Thank you, Emery. Thank you so much for being here. I think that's the first time I've been called an expert in travel in a long time, so I appreciate the call out.
Yeah. So before we start the show, I went through your profile. I just did some digging, and you just spent so much time working in travel overall, multiple different companies and all these different roles. So I feel very comfortable calling you an expert on everything travel related. But can you tell our audience a bit about yourself and how you got into all this?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I'm originally from Australia, grew up in Sydney, Australia, had big dreams of playing professional basketball. However, didn't quite make it, though that taught me a lot of great lessons around discipline, determination, perseverance, teamwork, and so forth as well. And then from there, I started working in the real estate industry at a young age out of school when the hoop dreams didn't follow through. And as any Australian knows, it's pretty much a rite of passage to move to the UK. So at that point, I hadn't really traveled at all. I think I'd been out of the state, maybe out of the country once, and moved to London with a friend. And then all of my friends, close high school friends, joined us at one point. And I spent 2 glorious years traveling through Europe, and that's what really ignited my passion for travel. And upon returning to Australia begrudgingly, at that point, after 2 fantastic years and going to a lot of great places through Europe, I decided to work in the travel industry. And that's what really set me on the path of working in the travel industry, typically because you just love travel so much. And at that point, I had the travel bug. And I was like, where can I go to next? Where can I live next? And landed on Vancouver, British Columbia, lived there for 8 years, continued working in the travel industry, ended up staying in Canada, moving to Toronto, becoming a Canadian citizen, and I've been here ever since. So to your point, I've been in the travel industry now for 17 years. Whew. So it's been a long time, many different roles, many lessons learned, met so many amazing people, and been to so many incredible destinations throughout the world. I'm beyond grateful.
And at some point, somewhere along the way, coaching came in, and I want to get into coaching. But before that, you said like the hoop dreams kind of fizzled out. I remember I remember the moment my dreams of becoming a rock star died. It was back when I was a teacher. I was teaching English for 5th graders, and I was talking to one of my students, and up until that point, she used to be my favorite. And we were talking about, I said, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? So she told me something that's pretty generic. Yeah. And then I said, well, when I grow up, I want to be a rock star. And he goes, but Mr. Emre, you've already grown up. And that one was like a dagger to the heart. It got me.
What was that kid's name? I'm sure you'll never forget that.
Lal, we're still friends on Instagram. Every time I see a story, I remember that exact moment. Great student. But so, what was the point where you said, okay, basketball isn't panning out?
So this is taking you back to early 2000s. Basketball wasn't really huge in Australia at that point. In the 90s, it was big because of Michael Jordan and so forth. However, basketball in Australia wasn't as big as it is today. We have one of the best leagues in the world, definitely top 5, I would say, now, as basketball's continually grown and become more popular. Australia traditionally is a cricket, swimming, rugby union, rugby league type place. But for me, I quickly realized I was playing basketball on weekends and it was getting in the way of my work in the real estate industry. You have to work on weekends, show houses and so forth. So I realized even if I was going to make it at that point into the basketball league, that was going to yield me an income, which is not really that much than what I was already earning. And then typically I wouldn't have been able to play much in the professional leagues as well. So reality kicked in and I decided to really focus that energy on building a career and then moving overseas to see what that would bring me.
Awesome. And which position did you play in?
I was a combo guard. I'm 5'11". I'm not super tall. However, I could shoot the ball really well. I could also pass the ball,
Nice.
but shooting was my focus.
Nice. Awesome. See, when you meet people through, Microsoft Teams or these virtual conferences,
Yeah.
you can never guess their height properly.
Yes.
Like one of my favorite people to work with in Teamflect, for the longest time, we had only met through like this, and we were like
Yeah.
working together constantly. And then when we finally got together on a big all hands, I never knew how tall he was, and he never knew how short I was. So it was just like a weird look. And then we exchanged a hug, and he just pressed me against the stomach.
Isn't it? Yeah, similar to the pandemic, right? When we spent so
Yeah.
much time behind screens and we hadn't met so many different people, hadn't seen them for so long. You came back and you had this different perception because you can only see them from the shoulders up, and then you're like, I forgot what you look like or how tall you were. It was really, really interesting time.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, those were some weird times. So, somewhere along the way, you started your own coaching business.
Yes.
And so Chris March Coaching. So what inspired that? How did you go, okay, I think I can do this and I think I can start my own coaching business?
Well, it is also about the pandemic. Thanks to the pandemic, as you probably remember, the whole world was shut down. Flights were grounded. The travel industry, the hospitality industry was the hardest hit, if you recall, because no planes were in the sky besides essential travel. So as an organization, we had to lay off 90% of our staff, which is something that I'll never forget. And we had to hold on to minimal staff at that point. However, as the pandemic continued to go on and on, keep in mind at the start, we thought this was only going to be what, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then it kept on going and going and going, right? And then no revenue was coming in, and we were told as senior leaders to start thinking about potentially plan B, as this company may not get through.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, had a lot of time for introspection, asked people for feedback around things that I did well, and it always centered around people and helping people was something that I really, really enjoyed doing. So landed on coaching, did a coaching certification with Jay Shetty, which I'm sure some of your audience may be familiar with, or you may be familiar with. He's doing fantastic work. He has a life and success coaching school. Did that, met some great people. And at that point, I decided to launch my coaching business at the end of 2020 and started coaching anyone and everyone, as you do at that point, ask family, friends, just to get the reps in, offer to work for people for free in return for a testimonial. And since then, I've taken on many different accreditations with coaching, had the pleasure of working with over 50 plus people now as well. And that's morphed into speaking and also doing workshops as well. So it's been an incredible ride, to say the least, when it comes to the coaching.
So do you practice, because there's a lot of debate and discussion around the whole coaching conversation, and some of it comes from a very skeptical side. Some of it, some of it comes from a side of not really understanding how it works. And there are some people out there who do like some nonsense under the whole guise of coaching. So how currently in right now, if I'm not wrong, but let me just get my facts straight. So you're currently the Chief Operating Officer at World Go Travel Management, right? So do you integrate coaching into your day-to-day work life over there?
It's a great question. And firstly, I want to answer your question about coaching and also the skepticism
Mhm.
there. With coaching right now, it's not regulated, so the bar entry is really
No.
low, and there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to coaching and what it truly is. I get asked that question a lot. What is the value that coaching really brings? It's a transformation experience which can help you overcome some challenges in your life. For me specifically, I'm a leadership and executive coach, so I help people navigate that part of their career, typically executives that I work with, to help them thrive within their organizations. I also work with leaders to help them level up their success as well. So those pain points that people feel in their professional careers, either getting into leadership for the first time or navigating the complexities of leadership, I really use it as or clients use it as a thought partnership to help them overcome those challenges. So it's really about helping people get from point A to point B and helping people along the way. To your second point around the integrating coaching, for sure, I do it from a day to day. I
Mhm.
take myself back to 3 years, 4 years before I was a coach, or professionally, I was a coach. I thought I understood what coaching really was. However, the difference was quite dramatic. And I think naturally, as a coach, when you're doing it and you're preaching it all the time, it naturally bleeds
Mhm.
over into your work. So I try to blend a little bit of coaching with a little bit of leadership focus as well in my day to day.
Mm, Once again, a lot of the common misconceptions around
Mm-hmm.
coaching, and I know you actually said your piece on this on LinkedIn as well, but
Mm-hmm.
it might coaching gets confused a lot with
Yeah.
mentoring and sometimes therapy. So, what
Mm-hmm.
sets coaching apart from those two?
Let me use an analogy of riding a bike. We've all gone through riding a bike, right? You remember those early
Yes,
stages where
sir.
your parents were, or your friends, family, or whatever, or an older brother, sister were helping you with that. Coaching is someone along the side of you helping you with the process. They're going to give you feedback. They're going to be providing immediate feedback around what you're doing well, what you're doing not well, to help you to become better at riding your bike. Whereas a mentor is someone who has a lot of experience with riding a bike. They will give you their guidance and advice based on their own experience to help you expedite that process with more of a long-term focus of success when it comes to
So
mentoring.
we broke off, Chris. We broke off for like a split
Okay.
second. So, uh, let's take it back from the side of the mentor. So
Yes.
we've gone over the coaching. So what about the mentor?
So for a mentor is someone you're going to lean on for their advice, someone who has experience with riding a bike for a long period of time. You're going to lean on them to expedite the process, and they're going to help you with the long-term success of riding a bike. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect analogy. I love it. And so you talked about some, coaching people, especially those people in leadership roles, through
Mm-hmm.
certain pain points or certain
Mm-hmm.
roadblocks in their career.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over the course of the years since you started practicing coaching, have
Mm-hmm.
you noticed a shift in those pain points that people were going through? What were some of the most common pain points when you first started, and how did they evolve as we made our way into 2024?
It's a great question. I think the biggest thing as a leader and being one myself, I'm sometimes my own ideal client. So I think the biggest things that you can struggle with is communication. Communication is a key skill in business and life. So helping with that is a key piece. Conflict resolution. Naturally in life, you're not going to work with everyone. Everyone's not going to get along. It's not
Yeah.
a movie, right? It's not going to be perfect. So helping navigate that, navigating change. The pandemic is a huge one. I worked with a lot of people during the pandemic to help them get
Hmm.
through that. Also, when you're trying to navigate into a new career as well is a big one. So
Yeah.
figuring out your way into that role to give you the confidence is a huge one. And I think now there's many more, of course. And I think now, as we continue to evolve and we come into this space of AI, that's a big one. How is that going to collaborate with you as a leader? Are you upskilling yourself to ensure that you're relevant? I think the skills are moving so rapidly now when it comes to AI. However, one thing AI can't do is the emotional intelligence piece and the critical thinking piece as well. So they're two key things that you can really harness, and you can never take that away from what you do as a human.
Yeah, I love that. And behind me is a sign that says curiosity is our superpower.
Love that.
And uh, this isn't my usual set. This is the set of someone else who also hosts a podcast, but in Turkish, and has published a lot on curiosity and everything. And I think one thing that they kept telling me when we were talking about AI is that I think curiosity is the one thing we're not going to be losing to AI anytime soon. And I'm sure there will be some, very smart computer person who can just pop up through the woodwork and actually and just knock me on my butt. But yeah, I think that's so. I think this leads us to one of the points we talked about, especially now when we're talking about AI. And I think this isn't just an issue for the modern leader; it's just an issue for the modern professional and just for everyone. Is people are very, as excited we are about AI, people are now have experiencing this fear of, am I going obsolete? Am I, are my skills, and I love this term, are my skills future proof? Is my current role, are my competencies, everything that I'm doing, are they future proof? So, and this is a very tough question to answer on a podcast, but here we are. Here we are. So, Chris, how do we future proof our skills?
Great question. And indeed, it is tough. So there's a number of different things that I think you can do. Firstly, we're in an abundance time where there's so much information and education available to you. You look at some of the best schools in the world that are offering these free resources, Google, IBM. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing.
Yeah.
You always need to be really focused on continually learning. You have the ability to take on all these free courses, as I just mentioned. Just have a look on LinkedIn or have a look online, a simple Google search. You can find these tools. The only investment that is required is your time and your focus. That is it. We're in this incredible time where you have the ability to do that. Secondly, one of the most important skills, and these are skills that don't require any training. It's the ability of soft skills. I think soft skills need to be rebranded to essential skills.
I
These are
like the sound of that.
these are essential skills. So emotional intelligence, huge piece. Again, AI cannot take this away from you. How do you handle your emotions for yourself in a team environment, with your friends, with your family, those type of things? There's a lot of great assessments that you can take out to really assess where you're at with your emotional intelligence. That is huge. Adaptability. We've seen so much change over the last 5 years. How you adapt and grow to things is what's really going to set you apart hugely. And there's also other things that I wanted to add as well. The little things like that don't turn up on the stat sheet or on your resume. One of the skills that are going to set you apart is to be easy to work with. Let me say that again, to be easy to be worked with. If you can be seen as someone who's easy to work with, you're reliable, you're on time, you're consistent with your behavior as well. Those are things that are going to set you apart. And it's really, really easy to do. Also, I would add just being punctual, be on time, be courteous, do the little things you don't really think of.
I mean, I get that. Those, just make you irreplaceable. And
Hmm.
the thing is, whenever there's, discussion of recruiting in general, I think the overarching sentiment is, people are hiring an employee, sure, but people are
Hmm.
also hiring a coworker and
Hmm.
someone who they're going to be spending a lot of time with.
Yeah.
And being that, being a great person that people want to spend time with, I think that is also just irreplaceable overall. But again, so the fear is still there, right? The fear that
Yeah.
someday, at some point, some of the things that I'm very capable of doing right now, and
Yeah.
things that are setting me apart from the rest
Hmm.
of the rest of the competition, will be automated and will be taken over,
Yeah.
by, it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, but just any form of automation and AI. So how does that leader, start working on themselves, and just what directions do they go in order to stay, relevant? Or, what directions do they go to just ease their mind overall?
Hmm. Yeah, mindset is really is everything, right? What you tell yourself becomes reality. So it's important for you to have the right mindset. So there's other little things that you can do as well. And I was just thinking about your first question further. You also have the ability to network. We live in an opportunity where we're so connected globally now as well. The world is a lot smaller and connected. So with platforms like LinkedIn, you have the ability, this is where we connected, you have the ability to connect with people around the world. You also have the ability to create your own personal brand. I think this is going to be your online resume in the future as well. And this is something that AI can't take away from you, is that you as a person, we all have a unique voice, we all have a unique story. Share your voice, create your brand,
Yeah.
share your details on LinkedIn, use it as your journal, provide educational, advice driven approach. It may just resonate with people as well. And I truly believe in the future, LinkedIn will be your online resume.
Yeah, I think that does look like the direction it's all going. And when we first brought up like the whole future proofing thing, you talked
Hmm.
about like courses people can take, and I
Hmm.
want to move that to the other direction of like trainings that
Hmm.
organizations usually purchase and offer to their employees, whether this be leadership trainings or teamwork or seminars.
Hmm.
I feel like in the learning and development space, a lot of
Hmm.
it is being done just for the sake of being done. It's turned
Yes.
into this compliance exercise where people go, okay, just at the end of the year, people want to be able to say, hey, look, we purchased these training programs for our teams.
Hmm.
Right, and then just be done with it until
Yeah.
the next training season and the next seminar season.
Hmm.
So how do organizations stop, that whole process of having those trainings just for the sake of having them, and actually turn them into, efficient processes?
It's a great question. I feel there's a big gap with that, and there's statistics to support this as well. The classroom style of learning needs a refresh. We all have we all have a unique voice. We also have a unique learning style, and the statistics around that type of learning, I think it's in the lower single digits of what people actually retain from those training sessions as well. So it's important that organizations really think about this holistically and not just a tick the box approach, as you said. I think
Mhm.
a lot of it comes down to leadership and their approach to it. I think as a leader, if you're taking an approach to it, you need to really map out career goals that align with the training goals as well. So if you want to
Mhm.
get to X, what can we provide you as an organization to help you get there?
Yeah.
Also map out a unique training goal that's going to support that as well. That will be really impactful for the person. And a lot of great organizations provide a development training fund as well, that as long as it aligns with the organizational goals. So making sure that companies have something like that and they're really promoting it consistently to ensure that we are supporting everyone in their own unique goals. Another big thing, and which really just requires a lot of time and thought from organizations, is a mentorship program.
Yeah.
Mentorship program is huge. I've seen it work really effectively within organizations where, as a new person joining an organization, if you were to get some face time with, let's say, some senior leaders, how valuable would that be? And also as a senior leader, getting that feedback from people in your front lines or middle management, how valuable would that be? It's a win.
Exactly.
It's a win-win.
Exactly. And I think with most training programs, people answer a lot of questions going into the training program, right? They go like, okay, what are we going to cover? We're purchasing this because we want this. We want our team to. But then they never answer the question of, okay, now what? Okay, we went through this program. So technically, after that, the amount of time spent in that training, our employees now have, these know-hows. They've worked on these soft skills. Okay, but how do we capitalize on these? They're not, because after, let's say, just a long week of workshops on, cross-functional working and everything, if they go back to the same environment and the same workspace, and they go back to their just doing the same thing, and they don't have the freedom and the space to implement all the things they've now acquired through this training, then that information is not going to be retained. Sure, people will keep the little, complimentary notebooks that were handed out during the training, and they will have the notes. Those things are just so difficult to throw away, because
I got a few of them still.
Yeah, exactly, because more often than not, they're pretty decent notebooks. And I love a good notebook. I spend so much money on notebooks that I don't even use, but they're pretty decent notebooks, and you spend a lot of time taking notes. And throughout the training, maybe there were points where you were like really excited. We were like, okay, this is gonna be, the difference maker. And then you get back to work, and the same routine just comes on and on and on, and you're just, you have your daily responsibilities, and then the notebook gets cast aside. Cut to like 2 years later, and your girlfriend goes, I think I can throw this out. This is just cluttering. No, don't touch that. You just,
yeah.
I think
true.
that's, yeah.
It's true. And I think as a leader as well, you want to be leading by example, as always, when it comes for training as well, and recognizing people who are investing in themselves and really being supportive and personalized when it comes to the learning path of your people as a team. As a leader, your responsibility is to help people grow. So ask the right questions and then take the actions to help them get there.
Exactly. And isn't that like it's not just coaching boiled down, but that's very much the essence of coaching, right? Asking the right questions. Because I think a lot of the time people mistake coaching for, just do this.
That's consulting.
Yeah,
that's consulting.
Exactly. And more often than not, the right way of coaching, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am, but it's about asking the right questions and helping the other person come to, whatever the right decision is for them. And when you're asking those questions, you're not like a lawyer who goes, oh, I already know the answers. I'm not asking questions I don't know the answers to. And sometimes you don't know where that conversation is going, and you probably don't know the decision they'll end up reaching. Right?
Yeah, you nailed it. As a coach, you're a compass. You're a guide to help people get to their destination. If I was to ask you a question to help you get the answer versus me telling you the answer, which would you likely follow through with?
Yeah, I'm terrible at having people tell me what to do. I'll just yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I just struggle so. And since I'm working remote, whenever someone just tells me what to do, even though I'm working with them, I just have this urge inside of me to go get out of my room, mom. Just no. No, I just I totally feel that. And taking it back, because you were just getting into the whole mentorship side of the
Yeah.
discussion, especially for people just joining in to
Hmm.
an organization. I think one thing that people are very much struggling with right now, as you
Hmm.
said, like with the pandemic, people were like thrown into remote work. And then after the pandemic, the whole like back to the office thing, it happened, but also didn't, right? Many
Mm.
organizations just said, okay, this is very viable and let's just stay this way.
Hmm.
So I think at some point, we are definitely going to have generations of employees who've never once set foot in an office,
Yeah.
right? And the onboarding and mentorship side of that, I think that's one of the most, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for remote work, obviously,
Hmm.
but the onboarding and mentorship side of it is,
Hmm.
I think that's the most difficult part of just working in a remote team.
Hmm.
Because then, like, sure, they start, but it starts here and it ends here. And, that
Hmm.
sense of community is very hard to install from the beginning, right?
Yes.
So, what are some of like tips and like best practices in your opinion when you're trying to onboard or mentor people from a remote setting?
It's a great question. With onboarding, you have one chance at a first impression, which is
Yeah.
which is important. You got to be great with that experience and trying to make it as seamless as possible. It's really important for you to make people feel engaged and happy
Mhm.
that they made this decision. And they feel welcome. I think as soon as possible, if you can do a virtual meeting to introduce that person to the organization is huge, depending on your cadence of meetings. I know some organizations, as part of their culture, they have Friday virtual drinks just to wrap up the week, build that camaraderie, build that
Mhm.
open environment as well is huge. It's really down to leadership, to your point, around ensuring that it's just not talked about, it's followed through. So for that person that's coming in, you really need to ensure that they have someone like a buddy partner is really something I would recommend at that point, to ensure they have a point of contact when they come to the organization. They can reach out to Bill, Jane, whoever it may be, to ask those specific questions, and it doesn't feel like such a solo endeavor. We want to feel a part of something, so having that person to come along with the ride can really help foster that environment for you immediately. And then ongoing, it's just important to have that cadence communication, especially early on. I think in that 30, 60, 90 days, making sure that
Exactly.
you're in constant communication with that person. You're asking for feedback and you're helping them move along, because those first 3 months, 6 months are crucial. It either makes or breaks it, right? As I'm sure we've all been there, and those first impressions are everlasting.
Yeah. And just coming in those first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you're trying to get used to a lot of the way that
Hmm.
organization does some things, and the tools they are using, both
Hmm.
digital and everything. It is very confusing, right? And
Hmm.
there are some great tools organizations use when they're trying to manage performance or onboard their employees, but I think one of the most frustrating things when it comes to those is organizations can go very much overboard with those tools and just have one tool for that and another one for that and another
Hmm.
one for that. So suddenly a new employee coming in, they're going like, okay, so we're talking. So Microsoft Teams is where we talk and where we have our chats, and then
Hmm.
this is where we do the tasks. Oh, and this is where we do like the recognitions and performance reviews, and that's a very frustrating situation for just
Hmm.
everyone involved. And if you want to avoid that happening to you, you should try Teamflect, the best performance management software in the Microsoft Teams ecosystem, and it comes fully packed with one of the best onboarding modules, again, in the Microsoft ecosystem, period. If you want to establish mentor and buddy relationships between employees with automated meetings and in their own cadence, you can do that. Automated 30, 60, and 90-day reviews for them. Sure, automated onboarding tasks for each department specifically, of course, and so much more. And all you have to do is click the link in the description. Okay, so on the topic of mentorship, going back to that, on the
Hmm.
topic of mentorship, what are some of the mistakes you are seeing people make as
Hmm.
they're mentoring not just new hires, sure, like mentoring of new hires, it's there, but also just overall mentorship in the workplace. What are some of the common pitfalls you see people falling into?
The important thing to think about when you're looking for a mentor is to make sure it is someone who is admirable, respected, is someone really who you aim to be in the future. You really need to be respectful of their time, make sure that they are available for the time commitments, be really clear on what you want in the relationship so it can be mutually
Mhm.
beneficial. I think it's really important to be clear of what you're trying to work on, what is the commitment from both sides to
Mhm.
ensure that it's a good fit and have that conversation. I think it really just comes down to curiosity as well, having that
Yeah.
conversation and asking the right questions and making sure that that person is someone that you know, like, and trust. With that, if you want the mentor relationship to be 100% fully effective, you need to be able to be comfortable, fully comfortable having a conversation with that person. So maybe have an introduction call to make sure that you feel comfortable where you can
Mhm.
share everything. You can be truly vulnerable. Otherwise, if not, it's not going to be beneficial for you. And you're the most important person when it comes to achieving that as well. So be wary of that, I would say, to ensure that you feel 100% comfortable.
Yeah. It's crazy how so many problems in the modern workplace where we just look at them like, oh, this is so, they all just look like such complex issues, and we have specific names for them.
Yeah.
Like last this week we're writing a piece on performance review biases, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
have like all these cool names for them, like attrition bias, halo and horns bias, idiosyncratic. It's crazy how often all these like fancy solutions with their complex names and fancy names, they can all be solved through like simple conversations and actually not holding on to things and actually saying, hey, can we talk about this like two adults and just go
I,
through the
I
motions.
agreed. I think a lot of challenges within the workplace is due to communication. Communication is the most vital skill for you to be successful. So and in life as well. So for all the listeners, I would highly recommend you invest in whatever medium is your preferred to help finesse your communication skills. It is a vital skill.
And I think it's really easy for me to boil the whole thing down. People just don't talk. People just don't
Hmm.
communicate. But there are lots of barriers, to that communication, especially
Hmm.
when someone is about to talk to someone in a management role or a leadership role. There
Hmm.
are some barriers stopping them from doing that. And
Of
again,
course.
from the outside looking in, it's very easy to say, I just talk to your boss. Why wouldn't you just talk to your manager? Just tell
Hmm.
them about it.
Hmm.
It's really easy to say that. But there are things stopping people from just approaching their managers, approaching their leaders, and more often than not, it's because it's either they don't feel like, oh, it's not going to make a difference,
Hmm.
and oh, it's going to get me in trouble, and just it's sometimes a matter of that person not appearing very approachable, even
Hmm.
if that is not the case, even if that
Correct.
is very much not the case. So, for the leaders and managers, how do they make themselves approachable, and how do they install that trust in their employees?
Be human. Be human. Strip yourself down to the title. Have a conversation with people. Yes, naturally, to your point, people are going to be afraid to speak and open up. If you're the CEO or the CEO or your direct leader or whatever the title, titles scare people. I get that.
Mm.
However, if you're a new leader and moving into a role, and this is something I always found success in, before I start really communicating overall the plan, the vision, and so forth, meet with every person on your team, just talk with them. How's it going? What's working well? What can we do better? What motivates you as a person? Simple questions coming back to communication, strip it down, have a conversation, get to know them as a person. If you show that level of interest in them, they'll then show a lot of interest in you, in your leadership, and also the collective goals of your leadership.
I like 100% agree with you, because those conversations, just like you said, I think you phrased it perfectly. Just being human, right? Just, those conversations, being human is worth 1,000 speeches on, oh guys, my door is always open. You can just say anything, free, speak your mind. Don't worry about even if you mean those, even if those speeches are as heartfelt as possible, and even if you actually mean them, just you as a leader being human and having conversations regularly, showing that human side without the titles in between, that is going to make just you a whole lot, just a lot more approachable. I think it's not exactly the same, but it's something along the same lines. Back when I was a teacher, I realized that many students have this idea of, the teachers at first glance, they aren't human. They're something else. They're a teacher. They're not a person, right? They're not an individual. They're Mr. Emma. They're Mr. Chris. It's that. And it's so weird because one day I wasn't using the laptop the school gave me, but I was just using my own personal laptop, and I was sharing my screen, and a kid, I'm just 100% telling the truth, saw my screen, saw Spotify. I go teacher, you listen to music? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such an extreme case from the point of view of a child, obviously. But it's not fully unrelated, right? It's just those everyday humanizing things that, form these connections where you just form these associations with your mind. If you're not having those conversations, you're always going to have that title in between you two, and it's going to stop that, just talk. It's just going to cut that off fully.
It's true. If in doubt, lead with kindness. Always.
Exactly. I mean, knowing that, hey, your manager also had a flat tire the other week and just had a very rough day, and you just one inconvenience after another, and spilled, salsa on their pants, just whatever, all those things, just immediately just make another person a lot more approachable. I'm not saying go full on Michael Scott with it, but yeah.
What a leader he is.
I think I so want to do an episode of the show on just, full on, not just The Office, but people and, fictional leaders, people in leadership roles from fiction. We just include Devil Wears. We can include so many different rom-coms in this. Just there are so many, leaders from fiction, just, books, movies, and everywhere. Just analyze them as leaders. It would just be that would be a great episode. I'm writing that down. And you're full on invited to that as well. I think that would be a very interesting conversation.
One I would recommend adding to that list, and I recently did a post about this on LinkedIn, Ted Lasso.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Of course. Exactly.
Ted Lasso.
Exactly.
I only recently watched it, and I was inspired, and I had to do a post about it. We need more Ted Lassos as leaders.
Yeah, I saw this joke. Maybe it was even on his trailers, but where they went, even though we all love Ted, if we met a Ted Lasso in real life, we'd think they were a sociopath, right? Just that constant, golden retriever like optimism that he brings in. That being said, I think they've done an excellent job throughout the show, where initially you think, oh, this is just some, happy-go-lucky goofball who is just spouting optimism, and just that whole character arc that he went through, and we saw the true leader in him. Oh my God. Okay, we are 50 minutes in, and I'm so ready to just go on an entirely different tangent on Ted Lasso. If you've listened to the episodes so far, I think we've had many different takeaways. There are many different takeaways from this episode of the show, but I think number 1 and 2, watch Ted Lasso and then check out Teamflect and then just everything else. But watch Ted Lasso. That's just on top of everything. Such a good show. Such a good show.
Incredible show. Highly recommend it.
Even if you don't like football or soccer or whatever, it's not a football show. It's not. It's just.
It's a life story.
Exactly. And again, coming back to curiosity with the, with the whole like dart scene, right?
Yeah, Ted's famous quote is "Be curious, not judgmental."
Be curious, not judgmental. Right? Walt Whitman, I think, right? Yeah.
Correct.
All right, Chris, that's such an awesome note to end the show on. We've gone on for 15 minutes. It's been great having you on the show. It's been great chatting with you. And anything you want to add before we wrap up the show? Where can our listeners find you? How can they stay up to date with all the updates from you?
Thanks again for having me. And please, I'd love to join the Ted Lasso conversation. I could talk for hours about Ted. I absolutely love that show and all the other fictional leaders out there. Michael Scott would be an interesting one as well, for sure. However, to get in touch with me, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Chris March, you can find me there. I write 4 to 5 times a week about leadership and personal growth. My DMs are always open. If you have a question about leadership or coaching or life, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Awesome. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts, leave us a like, subscribe to the show. It really helps us out. And once again, if you want to check out the best performance management software in the Microsoft ecosystem, the link is in the description. This has been the Team Check-In. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.